Welcome to the Marvel Cinematic University podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Canton III, and we are starting our coverage of the Disney Plus series, the animated series, X-Men 97. The nostalgia has hit. I'm very happy to talk about these first two episodes. Firstly, with the super producer, Jake Christie. Jake, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm happy for you guys. As we mentioned before, I'm a little too young for this to be nostalgic. I'm not going to give my exact age I was when the last episode aired, but it would make you sad, AC. But I'm happy for you guys.
Oh man, it's wonderful. We do have a special guest with us. Friend of the show, does work for the Ringer. He's in the wrestling spaces, of course. He's talked wrestling with me before. He's been on this show, of course. Cameron Hawkins. Cam, how you doing, sir? Pleasure to have you back on.
Doing all right. Doing all right. Thank you for having me as always.
Wonderful, wonderful. And before we get started, just a reminder to everybody, patreon.com/MCUniversityPod, where you can get our bonus content, subscriber mailbag, coming later this month. We have Mission Impossible 3 that we're going to do. Bracket First Take. If you're interested in everything that's going on with the MC University bracket, as far as Jake is concerned, he has that whole thing set up. We are getting into the nitty gritty as we are determining who will reach the Elite Eight. You will get the recap this weekend. And of course, if you want to get into the Discord, it's $3. And for an Avengers level subscription, $8, which gives you plenty of other wonderful gifts. So with that being said, X-Men 97. I was thinking about this about a month ago when the trailer hit. And I remember seeing the trailer and I was like, wow, it's like you really hits you in the feels, but at the same time, you wonder, how would it translate? Something that occurred so long ago. How will they translate it? How will they, will it have the same feeling? Will we have the same vibe? And I mean, just to generally state it flat out, these first two episodes were incredible. Just incredible from the standpoint, not only storytelling, but just the animation being livened up. The fact that we got to these characters again and view where they are. They're all in different places, and but in a lot of ways, the more things change, the more they stay the same. In a lot of instances, that part of it was fascinating. But Cam, I want to ask you first. So coming into this, obviously everything that I just said, but then viewing these first two episodes, you had a lot of thoughts on them that were very, very visceral, very intriguing. What were your initial thoughts watching these first two episodes?
I think the thing that I was worried about was kind of continuity, right? Like, how do you maintain the feel? How do you maintain the spirit of what you were doing? How do you maintain like the urgency of a lot of the situations? And they captured it, man. It's we've had so many Marvel animated projects that are kind of building to something. Here's something that's already hit the ground running. Here's something that already has very clear stakes. And I think they did a great job of recapturing that immediately. You know what I mean? I did not feel like um, they're not wasting any time, I think is my biggest thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's literally, hey, this is a story we've been telling. We're going to keep it going. If you haven't been paying attention, you got plenty of time. You got a week between every episode if you need to catch up with this stuff. But yeah, I just feel like they did not miss a beat. Um, very, very just heartwarming to know that they recaptured the spirit, that it does not feel less than. If anything, it feels more intense, and that it does not have some of the same restrictions as being on Saturday morning. So
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it. Now, Jake, this is new territory for you.
Yep.
So I wanted to get you how you came into this and what
Yep.
your viewing experience was.
So as I mentioned on a previous pod, I was initially intending on watching all the X-Men original series, animated series, excuse me, before this, and then I looked at the calendar and it was like March 5th, and I'm like, well, I don't have time to do that. And so I watched a recap and everything. As obviously I don't know everything. I literally just didn't want to be lost, and I'm glad I did because it really is just a full on continuation of the story. The thing that before I kick it back to you, because I don't have much insightful to say at this moment because
Sure.
I don't have the same background and it's not really for me. But the thing that I really appreciated about it is how much it moves. Like it is really old school television storytelling of like there is an overarching plot, but like every episode, there's a thing that is introduced at the beginning of the episode, and it is somewhat resolved by the end of the episode. It's not all just building on one thing. It's not like, well, I guess, like, once again, I know that this season's going to be about generally this whole Magneto thing, but like, there are beginning, middles, and ends to all of these episodes, to both of these episodes, and that is like just really refreshing and something that I'm glad they did, because if they were to, because that's the way the cartoon storytelling is, and if they were to, because it's 2024, start doing it in like prestige TV storytelling, it would feel fake. You know what I mean? It would feel fake if it's like, we're gonna have these characters look the same, be voiced by most of the same people, but if we're gonna start doing the same storytelling we do on the other Disney Plus shows, it's like, that would suck. But it really feels like they were writing this to be a animated, series from the 90s.
It's propulsive. It is modern, yet still hits you with that same nostalgia. Is kind of the big takeaway from it. I think the first episode, if anything, establishes or reestablishes the center conflict of the story, which is mutants and how they're viewed, and how this view, no matter how much the X-Men do to try and prove otherwise, there's just a bunch of humans who just like, nah, I don't believe you. You need more people. It's pretty incredible how the Friends of Humanity, shout out to Jerome for FOH tweeting that earlier. It's seeing that, and I think just how still full of hatred these people are, still full of anger these people are, when they kidnap Sunspot at the beginning, and he's offering them money, and they're like, money, money. Mutie, we don't care about no money here. We want you eradicated. We want y'all destroyed. And they got all this Sentinel tech and all this other stuff. And then as we get the first intro to the X-Men coming in and fighting, I think this was one of the cooler points of both episodes. The action in it was going, it was cooking, it was cracking. Bringing in Storm the way she was, Bishop being an official member of the team, seeing him now seemingly week to week is going to be fun, and somebody who in a lot of spaces is very divisive amongst X-Men fans, how they feel about one Scott Summers. And I think in this first iteration, these first two episodes, Cam, I believe that Scott Summers has showed that he might be him, ladies and gentlemen.
I think like it's amazing what you can do with a budget, right? Like just the visual of him, one taking out a room of guys, but like shooting a guy in the knee to throw him off balance before taking him out. It was just like I remember reading way back, like Scott Summers is a master of calculus and trigonometry. You know, it's that whole feel of if you've played the Insomniac Spider-Man games, when like Peter's explaining to Miles how important studying is so that he can get his webs right. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So when you see Cyclops like doing the master tactician stuff, when you see him shoot the ground to propel himself to hit the next guy, it's so good. It's so, and then just they shot our ship. Hey, you everybody who flies, catch the guys who can't fly. I got this. And he does the superhero landing of all superhero landings. Hey, I'm going to slow my fall by shooting the ground. And it was just it finally made sense why he was in charge.
Yes.
Like it really did add up. And I think that, that's one of the not downfalls of the cartoon, but boy, between X-Men TAS and those first three X-Men movies, they did not do him any type of service as far as making you understand why he's so important and vital to the team, other than girls like him. It was nothing else, And yeah, it was amazing, and he has a legion of new fans because, like, I mean, I'm not, here on MC University. I kind of had to yell at some people yesterday about like the comics. Yeah. Like he does that if you read the comics. I'm like, that's why I'm excited, because I read the comics and they got it right. Yeah, man, it was the best reintroduction of a character I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, I think the great thing about the Cyclops reintroduction to the fold is, you can do everything that you just said, but also still have the legitimate questioning from the rest of the team as Xavier is gone, and while Cyclops has proven himself to be that type of leader, there is also seemingly a two-track mind with him as Jean, or who we think is Jean, more on that later. Um, is trying to push him towards leaving the team and what that all means. Friend of the show, Stephanie Williams. I was on a text message thread with her earlier today and yesterday, and the thing that I told her instantly, what I love about this so much is there's the superhero stuff, there's the real serious stuff, and then there's the soap opera mess of it, and you put that all together in a pot and this shit just cooks. And this part with Cyclops and the leadership angle is a bigger angle, as opposed to everything else that's going on. And it's so interesting to watch how this kind of dynamic changes and things along those lines, because you got Wolverine, who doesn't want to listen to him clearly, and you have others like Gambit and Rogue, who are kind of like, whatever, it ain't no big deal. You're in charge, but all right, it's not a big deal whatsoever. So I think that it creates a nice bit of tension for the group overall, just a fun bit of tension. But Jake, let me ask you, as watching Scott Summers in these first two episodes, what did you make of the story element of this
Yeah.
leadership thing with him?
So I think that, like, as someone who did not read the comics but watched all the movies and stuff, but now associates with a lot of people who read all the comics, one of the most common refrains of things that movies got wrong is Cyclops in the X-Men movies. Like, that is just a thing that I know to be true because people say it all the time. And so, like, I wasn't surprised that he was the way he was, because I was primed to be like, okay, he's not going to be, James Marsden in this. God love James Marsden, but he's just is not. He's a himbo. He's not the leader of anything. And so I thought that they played it really well, and I think the thing that's important about it is that, like, he is not being too much of a tryhard in terms of wanting to be a leader. So you are sympathetic to him not being listened to, as opposed to, he's not doing the thing, like, he's not like being like a stepdad of like now I'm your father. He's like, someone's got to be a father, and he is right to think that he is the best person to be. Like, of all the people who are there, he is the one that I would trust to lead the team. Not like that I'd necessarily trust him, unequivocally, but what are you going to let, Logan manage the team, or, Gambit, is too busy making beignets. So I think that you're on his side, but in the same way of, like, you're not my real dad, you also understand everyone being like, yeah, but you're not Professor X. And that's kind of there's no way to get around that. It's kind of like a thing you have to get through.
Yes, and it's one of those things that, as you see each episode evolve and as we continue the weeks going on, will these things come into more question? You add Magneto to the mix now, as in the last will and testament of Charles Xavier, everything is left to him. He is leading the X-Men for the time being, and the idea that Cyclops was cool with leaving, but now it's not cool with leaving because Magneto's there, creates a very interesting thread that we'll see play out over the next few weeks. Now, one of the biggest things that we talked about at the outset here was the storytelling and the hatred of the not only the FOH but previous characters that we've seen in the show. Mr. Gyrick, that we saw in prison. Cam, you had a lot to say about him. I would like you to give me your thoughts, as they're doing the interrogation. They're trying to get some information on Master Mold and where Bolivar Trask is. And Mr. Gyrick, he said what he said with a lot of force that you wouldn't expect from something on Disney Plus.
Yeah, and to even backtrack, when they capture Sunspot, one of the first things he says is like, "Guys, I'm one of the good ones,"
Ah,
and
yes.
it's just like they're using very deliberate language so that there's no confusion this is an allegory about minorities. This is an allegory about the queer community. Like they're very, very clearly saying, you know, some of you were dumb children. You'd watch X-Men and eat glue, sometimes at the same time. And so you thought you were just watching superheroes with flashy lights fighting bad guys. And a lot of people, and listen, I got a buddy who has a very big YouTube channel, and he came out and was like, "Yeah, X Men's just like too woke for me," and I'm like, hey, "X Men's too woke now," and I just want to pull him aside, like, "Bro, it was always this. It was always this."
I mean,
It
it's
was
funny.
not-
People were saying that too when the movies came out originally, because like there's a famous scene in X2, and I mean Bryan Singer, horrible person, but because he's gay, he made it much more, I think, specifically a gay allegory. And there's that scene, I think, X2, where it's like, did you always know you were a mutant? Or can you try not being a mutant? And then people were like, it's too woke. But it feels like every time this happens, people forget that the last one was woke. And obviously, they weren't saying woke back then. They were saying, like, PC. And then
Yeah,
whatever the next term is in 15 years when they reboot it again, they're going to say it's to that.
Might as
exactly,
well,
exactly. And
yeah.
it's always been this. But like you said, you talk about language. Like Gyrick was, he tells them that like you really think this is it? Like you think that because and listen, there's nothing that's ever been more deliberate than Professor X is considered dead. Now there's this idea of harmony between humans and mutants, which is like the clearest. Wow, boy, does Vince McMahon love Martin Luther King Jr. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's very much that. But listen, man, he told him straight up. He said, and it was Gyrick and not Trask, right?
Yeah, Trask is later with Master
Yeah,
Mold.
yeah. Okay, I get white people confused. But when he,
They all look alike.
yeah, when in the interrogation room, he's like, "Yo, like y'all are the Fed right now." You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's cool to like y'all, but people are going to understand. Humans are going to understand that assimilation means extinction. And I was like, "Oh my god, white power, white power, white power!" Like this is crazy.
Shades of 2020, let me tell
Yeah,
you. That was the first
Yep.
thing I
this
thought
is
about when that bit of
crazy.
dialogue was going on.
Yeah, and they have that really cool spot of even when at the beginning when they're hunting down Sunspot, that newspaper flies across the screen, and it's literally about a mutant fashion show about how society will absolutely like fetishize and they will find the things that they appreciate in people that are different from them
Mhm.
to exploit them. And man, it's just like they did a great job in the original show with
Mhm.
with Angel, with Warren Worthington, being this rich guy and having women, but always having to conceal who he was to feel good about himself. Lady shot him. A lady shot that man because she saw he had
Remember.
wings. You know what I mean? It is, they're being so concrete. And again, like to bring the point back, a villain that is convinced that their villainy is for the betterment of people. Oh man, it's hard to top that. And he was in there talking that talk. It was
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah, he was definitely in his bag there because it's like I was waiting for him to use the hard M. I mean, damn, he was really going for it there,
He meant that. He
and
meant that.
and the same thing with Trask too is like the way that they describe their fear. They're just like, we are afraid of you. Why don't we have the right to defend ourselves?
Yeah.
And it's and the way that that's stated so explicitly,
Mhm.
and you see that thread continue in the second episode. But before we get to the second episode, I wanted to ask about Storm because I think the way that they do Storm's character in these first two episodes was pretty. I thought this was pretty interesting, and also they introduced some real comic book elements and comic book storylines that we might see play out through these initial 10 episodes in this first season. And first introducing her as an omega level mutant That whole thing was cool. Just her overall strength, uh, her just leadership. Again, that's another. I mean, in the books, remember Storm whoops Scott's ass to become leader of the X-Men. So that was a thing. So they, keeping that in line, and then of course, eventually, unfortunately, her getting shot by something that could depower her, which had a lot of people like, wait a minute, why you got to do that to the whole Storm? But then you got to let it play out, because this is a big part of when an individual has to understand that it's not just the powers that make you you.
Also,
And
as if she's gonna keep her. This is like when people actually thought Brian Griffin was dead on Family Guy. Storm was gonna get her powers back. What are we doing?
so yes, Storm is so interesting to watch, and kind of the way that she interacts with everybody. Cam, what did you think of Storm, and how we saw her, and kind of how she has an interesting story arc ahead of her?
Some Storm, both then and now, some of the best voice acting, both by choice and performance, of any character in animation.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how she carries herself. The idea that I can't feel the wind anymore. I can't feel the breeze. It was just like, oh, it's so emotional. I love that she's absolutely treated as a goddess. I love that Magneto says that. I love that our character's taller than everybody and stoic and has good advice. And now it's like, boy, I got to find myself. I think her characterization is fantastic, and especially, she was always she was team leader when he wasn't team leader, like in the original show. But I think that we absolutely live in a society where putting her at the forefront, I think, is going to be appreciated. And she's always just been this amazing character. I'm just waiting on Black Panther to show up and just for no reason, because nobody wants it. I'm just waiting for it to happen. Like, you guys are going to ruin this, but she's so good just on her own. And I think what's also great is like you said, not having her powers, she whooped Callisto's ass with no powers.
That's right.
In the fake lightsaber fight.
That's
what
right.
I mean? So, she's still very much, like you said, being a mutant is way more than just your powers. You look at the treatment of the Morlocks, in that they are made they can't operate in normal society because of how they look. And she was in charge of them, but understood the importance of allowing Callisto to lead her people. You know what I mean? Like, Storm is just this great character, and I can't wait to see her navigate this world for a little while without powers, just to see what they do with her. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the info about that arc, for anybody curious, it's the life death arc, where after she loses her powers, she goes on a bit of a journey, and she eventually meets up with Forge, and they kind of begin what their relationship is going to be. And you can read that and see how that plays out, and it's just it's complicated, it's nuanced. There's a lot of good stuff in there that leads to Storm's individual story and her collective story with Forge and their relationship, because in a lot of ways, even in some ways more than T'Challa, her and Forge's relationship in the books is pretty intense. So there's a lot of emotion there. So I look forward to seeing if they decide to go that route, exactly how they do it. It should be a lot of fun. But yeah, Storm is to see her back is cool. I mean, obviously seeing all these characters back is great. Another character that is very intriguing, obviously, is one Magneto, Eric Lensher. He is now the leader of the X-Men for the time being. Jake, how did you feel about his introduction into this? And it seems like he has his hands in a little bit in everything.
The way I feel about his introduction in this is that at 7:08 this morning, in the group chat that is the Daddy's Pod, it's Jerome, Springed Up, Shivani, Cecilia, and me. Jerome just texted a photo of Magneto in X-Men animated series, so that's one way I feel about it. He's coming in with an energy, and I don't know. I like that as so far. I would have been a little bit upset if at the end of like episode 2 they cut to him alone, like being like, and of course they don't know that this is all part of my plan, yada yada yada. Because like I'm sure that he will obviously have a turn in some way, but I personally think it's much more interesting if he has a turn as opposed to I was lying the whole time. Because that's always
Right.
less interesting to me. I was lying the whole time is like, okay, so we learned nothing about your character from what you did in the
Yeah, you
past few
didn't build
episodes.
anything on it. Yeah.
And like I think that the thing that's interesting to me about Magneto is that he is conflicted in some ways. Like obviously he disagrees with Charles, but like he is not amoral. Like he has a moral code, and so therefore he is able to make moral judgments that can change. And so yeah, the messiness is what I really want to talk about, but I think we should do the important stuff first.
Yes,
So
of course.
yeah. So you do the important stuff. I'll sit here, drink my Coke Zero, and you guys keep going.
Yes, and so Cam, as far as bringing Magneto back into the fold here, I think one of the things that obviously comes across, and Jake mentions it, is how he initially is really on the vibe of my friend asked me to do this thing,
Mhm.
and I trust him. I'm gonna trust him against my better judgment. I'm still gonna trust him to do this thing, and obviously there's friction across everywhere between law enforcement and the team that he's supposed to lead. So it's coming from all angles. So he's in a position of having to prove himself. And to see what happens in episode 2 and how that gets tested off the bat is a really nice pressure cooker that I didn't expect them to get to this early. But the fact that they did, I'm glad that they did, because it really sets the parameters of what Magneto is trying to deal with and trying to reconcile with as he deals with these people who still hate his guts.
Magneto with the Audrey Hepburn gloves. I love it. I love it. Such a great look. Um, what I appreciate is that even if it's like a 6 month jump, right? There are things that have been established, things you understand how the world feels about Professor Xavier. But like, I love that the government showed up to arrest Magneto with plastic guns,
Mm-hmm.
but they did have to show up in regular helicopters, so it was a good touch. It's like, hey, I still got you. But the idea of, you know, one concept that was tough for me as a kid that I appreciated more as an adult was Beast agreeing to go to jail to clear his name. You
And then
know,
staying there. Remember that
yeah,
episode with the
Magneto broke him
where
out.
Juggernaut was running roughshod all over the place, and then they go in jail, and then he's in there, and then Rogue and Storm is like, "You want to break out?" And he's like, "Nah, I'm gonna stay right here."
Well, I got it.
It's like,
So Magneto agreeing to stand trial. Um, I'm gonna ask you guys something here in a little bit, but him agreeing to stand trial, him telling his story, him explaining why he's done the things that he's done. Magneto created the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, like basically to spit in the face of the idea that their cause wasn't just. You know what I mean? Because when you listen to him, it's like it's Magneto is not Killmonger.
no,
In that, like, Killmonger's right because, and you got to do that. No. He's literally killing innocent people like left and right, just so he can be in charge. Like, that's not what it is. You believe Magneto's plight, and he got in front of those people, said, "Look, I did what I did, but it was for my people, just like you're doing what you're doing for your people." And had no regrets about anything that he did, but is saying that I want to do it a different way. It's great. He's so layered, and you understand why, because through every medium, what he does makes sense, even if he takes it too far. You know, yeah, and him being in charge of the X-Men, him being challenged to do the right thing by Charles Xavier. You're gonna see him bend and break eventually, but it's gonna be a fun ride because he believes in what he's doing. He
yes.
always believes in what he's doing. Even if he can't see the finish line, he believes in the importance of the cause. And right now, he's trying to find a different way to do it.
And it's definitely not easy, especially when you have a situation where we got a little bit of an allegory to a certain event that happened a couple of years ago in this second episode that happened in real life in DC, as far as the whole insurrection situation of where
No,
were
it
you
was
on
like,
January?
no, they literally had them folks bust up in the building like it was, yes, it was just January 6th. It was
Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's kind of weird. We were talking about hanging Mike Pence because he was just a congressman from Indiana at the time. But yeah, it was. But yeah, they did exactly right.
the executioner and this dude when he is punching the shit out of Cyclops
He's working his
and
ass.
he's working him and he's talking that smack to him too. He's like, what did he say? He went along the lines of, "Wait, you guys want to complain? You getting all this and you complaining? At least we have the dignity to not say anything about what's going on here." And I'm like,
And he's
"Yo,
literally poor white man. He's literally poor white man. It's so good. Oh my
oh,
goodness.
oh, man,
Yeah,
that was like, oh, you felt the hatred in that man's voice." And then when he shoots Storm, we see that turn from Magneto, and he's like, "Nope, not just you. Y'all are coming with me right now, and we're gonna have a conversation." And he goes straight out with it: bigot, sycophant, worm. He's using these really strong adjectives to describe these folks, and it was a really powerful scene, him having them folks all the way up there in space
Yeah.
and really showing them, this is how you want me to play by the rules, and this is the shit that happens, and it seems like y'all want me to pay for it. Y'all want me to see my kind like this, and you're talking about peace. It's a very complicated thing for somebody of that magnitude of power. And then you got your homie who died, and his dying wish is like, "Hey, relax, chill, please chill for me and for the betterment of our people." And yet, these people still are shitty.
Let me find the quote. Cause
Yeah.
boy, Magneto dropped some damn
Woo.
knowledge. Um, I hate when you gotta search the tweets. What did I use? There it is.
Feel free.
Okay. Latest. Here we go. Was it yesterday? Why am I getting Hey, just don't ever have Twitter. They
yeah.
fucking
Twitter broke the latest tab when you search. It now just gives you everything, which defeats the purpose of latest.
For you from all that other stuff.
there's
Yeah.
a damn lot. Okay, so basically they bust up in
Mhm.
the room and executioner is like, yo, I'm gonna take out the politicians too. And he was like, what did I do? And Magneto was like, that's crazy, right? You play by their rules and you can still get got. I forget exactly what he said, but it was so fucking
Yes,
cool.
I
yes,
mean,
right before that.
and I think that is the thing I appreciate about the allegorical stuff in this is that I think if they were to use the same allegorical terms and like situations as 1997, it would feel very out of date. Because although the conversation about race and gender and sexual orientation, you know, it's quote unquote still the same conversation. It's not literally the same conversation. Like things have changed in a lot of ways, and in that, I think a thing that we see now is that, and this is why the imagery with the insurrection was so good, is like once you can't give an inch to bigots because ultimately they want to destroy the other. So if you're like, we're just gonna mildly punish the other, they're gonna hurt you for only wanting to punish the other. You know what I mean? Like putting
Mhm.
Magneto on trial is not enough for the bigots. And if they put Magneto in prison, that would not be enough for the bigots. If they were to kill Magneto, that would not be enough for the bigots because they want them to kill all the X-Men. So I like that it's not as simple as like it's not as simple as just like hating other people is bad. It's like no. Making any sort of deal. If you're someone who doesn't consider yourself hateful, but it's like, you know what, for political expediency, I'm gonna meet them halfway. No, they don't want halfway. They're bigots. Bigots don't want halfway. But no bigot is like, I hate this group of people, but as long as they're like 50% punished, I'm happy. It's like, no, that's not how it works. And
No.
He
so I
told
think,
that man, he
yeah,
told that man, oh, to play by the rules and still they come for you. Oh,
Yep.
it was so good. It was so
Mm.
good.
Incredible stuff,
And
man.
Executioners is a you talk about like the style is so 90s, but it's such a great look. It's
Hmm.
such a great look. And again, he's guy. He's guy. Guy with badass weapons and skills. Are the
Yep.
now are the scars across his face, are those from Wolverine?
It's like you almost wonder if that was. It looks very similar, like as if he took a lashing.
Yeah, but it's like, damn, if Wolverine scratches your face, I feel like your face comes off.
Well,
But
that's a whole
yeah,
difference. Unless Sabretooth got a hold of him one time.
definitely
You
possible.
never know. There's a lot of these folks out here. But yeah, Magneto is just what a fascinating character to look at, not only from this angle, this whole political angle, but also little did I know as the episode as episode 2 was going on, little did I know as we have this scene where Rogue comes in and I didn't catch it the first time I watched it. So I didn't catch this part. So like they're having the conversation beforehand, all the X-Men and whatever about like, oh, Magneto's back, he's running whatever. And then Rogue just goes, "Oh, maybe we should give Eric a second chance." And I should have thought about it. I'm just vibing. I'm enjoying the episode and whatever. But the cynicism in me should have been like, wait a minute, why did she use his first name?
Mm. Yeah.
Who calls him Eric besides maybe Charles? And that's it.
Yeah.
I said, what? So then later, we Magneto's in the study. And then that Rogue is having the conversation with them, and then there's a little bit of contact. And I'm like, wait a minute, I did not know this happened. I was like, what? Be still my heart.
Question:
Mm-hmm.
What is
Yes.
What is the age gap here? What are we talking? Because Magneto's got to be at least in his mid to late 60s if he was in the Holocaust. So
Yeah.
and
It's up there.
I'm someone. My opinion on age gap discourse is if the lower number is 25 and above, go for it. Whatever, you know what I mean. But like, still, that's why when I first heard the Eric thing, I thought that, but I'm like, surely they wouldn't have a romance storyline between someone who's like 31 and a 66-year-old. But apparently,
Well, however, and then so I'm thinking. So in the first episode, they're showing Rogue and Gambit, and they seem like they cozy. They seem like they cool. Gambit's making beignets.
mm-hmm.
They in the club. They holding hands. And I'm like, things looking nice between them, but you never realize that might be just on some homie shit.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Gambit didn't realize that until this episode, where then at the end of episode 2, Magneto and Rogue kind of get to it a little bit. And then Gambit's in the hallway, probably Carl Thomas playing in his head.
Mm-hmm.
Cam, give me some thoughts, brother.
And what's crazy is like they very deliberately made them close, like Rogue and Gambit. Like it's not like in the original show where it's kind of like, yeah, she has feelings for him, but she has to keep her distance. Like they're very much like, I don't know if they're a couple, but they're very much like close and always together. And like I think when they went to the club, they were off together. Like they're they're a thing. And like he's worn her down. He's worn her down. Like she's kind of accepted. She's not going to be able to touch him, but he's okay with that too. Yeah, and now you have this thing where they very clearly were like, not only does Magneto control metal, but it's electricity itself. So it seems like he's able to generate some type of field to where he can actually touch Rogue. And it ain't the first time he touched her. That's the real interesting part. Like, how do we get there is going to be the thing. Yeah, it's a mess. And, Gambit is sad, but Gambit is Gambit. Gambit going to try to check him. And that's going to be really interesting.
Oh my gosh.
See, the problem was that Gambit thought that she was into the Creole seasoning. Turns out she wants the salt and pepper.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Watch the agenda. Watch the agenda wins again. Oh my goodness.
A big win for your salt and pepper brethren.
Oh my goodness gracious. That's just incredible stuff. We got mess, baby. Oh, that's why I love the soap opera. So steamy. Oh my gosh. Who knows what's gonna happen? And then on the other side, we got poor old Logan. Logan was very, very, very curmudgeon at this point, as he always is. And, he's chilling as the whole insurrection thing is going on at the courtroom. And, of course, Jean, who we think is Jean, more on that later, is like, Logan, we got to go. And then, of course, he's like, Apocalypse? He's ready to fight? And then she goes, no, the baby. And that man looked like he saw a ghost.
He rather it
Oh,
was Apocalypse. He was hoping it was Apocalypse. That was something different.
Oh, man. It's so interesting. Like, they made, in the original animated series, Wolverine just, like, with the gene thing, especially the first season into the second one, that was just very tough. That man was going in the danger room fighting fighting a fake Cyclops just because he needed to get
The day of the wedding.
the day of the
The
wedding.
day of the wedding, he was fighting fake Cyclops.
Had his good suit all torn up. Oh my goodness gracious! And so now he's driving the girl he loves to have her baby delivered. This soap opera, oh, it's just so good. Oh,
He's just,
so
I
good.
mean, real. I mean, from what I understand, this is, I think, it might have been something that was brought up by Jerome previously, that Wolverine X-Men animated series is perhaps the most cuckolded character in fiction. And we continue this. To have to bring the woman you love to deliver her baby by the guy that you hate, that's some real... Woof.
That man was standing in the doorway when that baby came out. Oh my god, poor
Jack, he
Logan.
was hurting.
And then you got Morph kind of like egging him on, like in the club where he's transforming into pregnant Jean, and I'm just like, oh my god. Oh,
Morph's the only dude who can get away with it. I love that. Morph's character arc in the original series. It's scary movies don't scare me, but things about like PTSD and confidence and that kind of stuff that's scary because that's stuff you'll really deal with. You know what I mean? And to see him in a good place is really cool. For their relationship to be as strong as it is really cool. I wonder if that's going to be a thing and how they tell that story, because Morph. I think Morph has a thing for Wolverine outside
yes.
of being friends.
Yes.
And so that's going to be really interesting, them telling that story. But I do love the confidence of, like, just, he was Gene in the club. He said, the woman you love is having a baby with the most boring person you can imagine. And, Wolverine wasn't having it, but yeah. And then, like, just shout out to Morph for, like, they did it in an episode in the original series where he basically saves the team from Mr. Sinister when he turns into every mutant doing stuff. And I just love seeing that. I love the idea of the animation. I love the quick wit. It was great. It really was.
Oh yeah, especially like this one where he saves Cyclops, he turns into Psylocke, he turns into Lady Deathstrike. Like that was cool to watch all the Colossus. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, just for a second. I thought like the animation from just an action standpoint with the teamwork, showing that episodes 1 and 2, I thought was fantastic stuff. Like I really do feel like this is a show, at least to this point, that really just gets it, that really understands that we are hitting the ground running and we are in a place where the fact that there is a already built story that everybody who's been on will be able to follow, and the new folks that we bring in will be interested because there's something propulsive going on, there's something that we can move forward into something else. So there's a lot of interesting soap opera elements to the series that I'm really happy to see so far. So right now we have Storm leaving. She left. She's off with her business. We got the Magneto Rogue Gambit thing, which should be very interesting. I'm excited to watch that going forward. And we get to the end of the episode where, as the team is talking about Storm leaving and stuff like that, and the whole Magneto's part in it, and Storm sacrificing herself to lose her powers for Magneto. So they get a knock at the door, and it's none other than Jean Grey. Wait a minute, what Jean Grey is this? Is this a clone Jean Grey? Is this a alternate reality Jean Grey? Or is in fact the pregnant woman that is with Scott Summers not Jean Grey after all? Cam, what say you?
Man, this Madeline Pryor stuff. It's Cyclops throughout especially like the comics, all the women, especially like the psychics, they just love the guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, and Mr. Sinister, we know he be playing in the background. I think that we're going to get a version of that story, and boy, ain't nothing like a mad redhead. It's gonna be really rough for that dude, man. Now, what's gonna be interesting, smart guys like you and Jake spend a lot of time trying to pinpoint things like when was Rhodey replaced, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you guys have, written stuff
Truly,
on chalkboards, and I feel like you've really done the research.
I have thought about it a lot, and you know what stage I'm at now? I threw my hands up and said, I'll wait for them to tell me.
It's going to be the same thing because Jean, there was the time in space. There's when the Phoenix came back.
That's
There's
right.
it's like what they choose to do with when she was replaced, if she was replaced, is going to be really, really interesting. And how they tell the story of how the replacement got there, I think is going to be really, really fun.
Also, wait,
Um,
but that baby's real, though, so I'm
No,
not
it's
saying
yeah. All of that is very
so
real.
so I'm not saying this isn't true, but and if they go with this, I think that this is interesting. But if she was actually replaced, that means that whoever replaced her is like, I'm going to go through a 9-month pregnancy just to keep this ruse up, and so that's dedication to the craft, whoever it is.
Well, I think the better aspect and the better question of this is it. I wonder how much of this is actually a ruse, or if she's kind of happy where she is, and that is
Hmm.
kind of that is that
Damn.
is where this gets interesting for Scott as he tries to navigate this whole situation and when this happened and where this happened. I thought it was telling in the first episode where they were interrogating Gyrick and then Jean comes in with Cerebro and she has that dream. She kind of has that little dream sequence
Mm-hmm.
with the baby and things seem a little off. Something disrupted her. So I wonder if what disrupted Jean, or in this case Madeline, was the actual Jean Grey coming back, or was it Mr. Sinister coming through? And this brings in the idea if Mr. Sinister is slated to be the main villain of this series so far, and we will see him soon. Actually, you see him in some of the title cards.
they put him in the intro
in
as
the
still
intro,
haunting Morph. Like it's
haunting Morph.
amazing.
Yeah, so we're gonna see him, and obviously his deal is, I just love experimentation. I will experiment on any type of mutant DNA just to see what the hell happens. So it's pretty clear that Jean was cloned and she was inserted at some point, and
Well, okay, you can't say it's pretty clear. This stuff is all. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, but you can't say it's pretty clear to a thing you're speculating about.
well, yeah. Well, as we go, we'll find out 100% for sure. But at least the way that it seems as if this show is um, adapting a lot of different comic book angles and comic book runs. This seems like one of the ones that they're going to.
For
So
sure.
if they
I just want
happen
to make
to,
it clear to the listener that you are not
yeah,
I'm not saying you're wrong, but I think that it's just
yeah,
important when you're like me and haven't read the comics and you're like, it's pretty clear that XYZ happens. Like, maybe if you're reading the tea leaves, but that is from all we know. I'll say this: when I was watching it, my thought was I thought it was from a different time because I don't know all this shit about cloning and stuff. That was my assumption. Because usually in most stories, when you see someone show up and meet themselves, it's time travel. But I'm not saying you're wrong. But that's how I think I read it because I don't know the backstory.
I mean, I'll be the first to tell you. Like when I first watched it, I like the first watch was strictly we're back. We're back in. The second watch is the, oh, what happened here? What is this here? What is this here? That's where I make my notations and stuff like that. So that the second watch is where everything comes in. Like specifically the stuff with Storm leaving and the dream sequence that Jean or Madeline goes through. That ooh, we are in for a very interesting ride with X-Men 97. Uh, Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah. One fun note I want to add. So Jubilee, who is more of a teenager now than she was even then. I think
Mm-hmm.
that watching her like interact with Sunspot, just like Jubilee's a cool kid, and I think that's really cool. Jubilee used the word bling and the word bestie. Bling did not become a word until 1999 when Lil Wayne introduced it.
Mm.
Bestie wasn't a real term until what, the last 10 years at the earliest, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fine. You know why? Because if you were a teenage girl in the 90s and you all of a sudden had access to a time traveling big homie, you would probably ask him,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, what they doing over there now?
Yeah.
What they got going on over there now? What's it like in the future?" So anytime an X-Man introduces a term that they maybe should not be using for their time, the excuse is they know Bishop, and Bishop gave him the game.
That explains why in episode 3, Rogue says that Magneto is her sneaky link.
I want Magneto to tell Gambit he was gonna give her right back. I was gonna give her right back. Like,
No, just the tweet of no worries, bro. Don't worry. She's just having a little sex. She'll call you back.
man, she's having a little sex right now, bro. Just go to the danger room. Oh my goodness.
Gambit is just stuck with those beignets. Poor guy. Oh,
Gonna be coming out with the New Orleans Saints bag over his head. It's real down bad.
Not only did he charge Wolverine's claws, but then Morph turns into Blob to bounce Wolverine up.
The
They
teamwork
were beating the
was
shit out them Sentinels, and it was, and I like that too. I like the idea of no Sentinels were a problem at one point, but like there's this really great tweet thread about the X-Men are a gang. Like, ain't no fair fights in X-Men. Like, we're not trying to take you one-on-one. We gonna run you. But they just run through battle scenarios all the time. I love that every X-Man is in amazing shape. And it's not just because they're superheroes or not just because they're mutants. It's because they work out all the damn time. Like, yeah, I just love that idea, and that there are other mutants who just look like regular people, powers or not. But yeah, man, it's just so good. It really is.
The aesthetic fits, everything fits. This has been a really fun start to what promises to be a really fun trip down the area of nostalgia and leading into something new. Jake, I want to ask you, like, just in terms of after seeing these first 2 episodes, and kind of where's your head at in terms of like excitement?
Yeah.
Has it changed from the I'm just excited for my buddy?
I'm excited because, like, the thing is, I'm pretty good at just picking up what the context is, especially with, like, the recap. But even, like, the recap was helpful with some things, but, you know, I'm not, like, I feel left out in some ways, but that's my own volition because I haven't watched this stuff. But, like, I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to see... The thing about it that makes me most excited is that the reason I'm excited is to see what happens with these characters, not to see what happens with the story, because, like, that's... And as I've said a million times, TV is a character medium, it's not a plot medium. And so, like, the fact that, like, you're telling me these things that are going to happen in the plot, but those are not things I was picking up on, and even without a map of where the rest of the season is going to go, I'm excited to see it because I'm excited to see what happens with these characters, with their relationships, and you know, whatever new mutants they want to throw in. So I'm very excited for the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to see Nightcrawler at some point. I'm sure the Brotherhood of Mutants in some type of way will pop up again, and who knows? It's Marvel, so we could see basically anybody if they decide to pop up for any reason. The show starts with the literal Daily Bugle posting, so you never know as far as that's concerned.
Probably the best, one of the best moments in, like, crossover Marvel history is the Spider-Man episodes with the X-Men, because Spider-Man's a bigot, and like, it was really, it's so surreal at the time.
I don't want to be like y'all.
Yeah, I don't want people to think I'm a freak. It's like, what? You have spider powers. Like, and he was like adamant, and eventually, of course, he comes around because he realized he was being a piece of shit. But like, yeah, Daily Bugle's there. You know, is Spider-Man a mutant? Is one of the headlines. And next to it was photos taken by Peter Parker. I love that. It's really cool. But yeah, man, it's the reason that Cyclops started to come around for a lot of people, at least on the internet, who don't really follow the comics, is a conversation between him and Captain America. And we all think the world of Captain America because he's Captain America. But Cyclops saying, oh, like, you want me to take care of a mutant problem. Where were you when they was hunting us down and putting us in camps? Like, where were you for that? But now you need something, you know? So how the X-Men interact with the rest of the Marvel universe is always so fascinating because we look at the X-Men as the wrongfully oppressed, and typically we have a very clear view of who hates them. They dress up like January 6th. But we also have to see them interact with the other superheroes, the people we look at as good people, and a lot of them like are ambivalent towards the cause. Like it really is going to be interesting to see who they add and when they add them and how they interact. I
A
think
lot
so.
of a lot of Bennett, I ain't in it situation going on
Mhm.
with a lot of these heroes. That's a great call out from Avengers versus X-Men. That's a great book for people to read if you haven't read that one yet. But yeah, just overall, this should be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. Uh, we got 8 more episodes on deck, so we'll be covering it all the way. Want to thank our guest and our pal Cameron Hawkins for joining us. What do we got on the docket? You will be going to WrestleMania soon. WrestleMania in 2 weeks, the biggest WrestleMania of all time. The Rock is doing concerts and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
It's a wild time. Who would have thought? Who would have thought with
It's
the great one would be back this way?
the journey from this year's Royal Rumble until now has just been crazy. It really has. Really starting with the press conference in Vegas. I got a lot going on, man. I'll probably touch down, I don't know, Wednesday ish, but there are conventions to go to. Of
Mhm.
course, me and the homies putting on Wale Mania on Thursday.
It's
Um,
a big show.
Yeah, WrestleMania press day will be that Friday. And then, there's WWE World is going to be really, really interesting. It's basically like a 4-day, 5-day fan experience. They rented out the big convention center, and they're going to be doing live podcasts and autographs and all
It feels
kinds of
like their
stuff.
own version of Comic Con, really.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that it serves some really interesting purposes. So I'm interested to kind of play the background there and just kind of see what my fellow content creators are able to produce. I think it's going to be some really cool moments. And then, of course, when we really get to it, Saturday morning, stand and deliver. My boys,
Trick
my
and Mellow.
nephews are main eventing, Mello
Oh
and
boy.
Trick. If
Oh
you look
boy.
at my header
Header? Yeah.
on Twitter, it's me, Mello, Trick, and my man Daniel Garcia. And I was with Mello and Trick last year at WrestleMania. Helped write a show for those guys for Sirius for DJ Who Kid. And so, me and Mello were already cool. Me and Trick have gotten really cool since then. I talk to these guys pretty regularly, and I gotta watch my nephews fight. Oh no, no,
Oh my
no, no! But
god.
it's gonna be great. Mello already being a young vet at this point, Trick finding his way to become a star. That's great. And then, of course, WrestleMania Saturday and Sunday. I got something I'm working on for the Ringer that should be out. If not the end of next week, definitely out before WrestleMania.
Nice.
Talking to somebody involved in one of the main events, so that should be really, really cool.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
excited
yeah,
now. Yes.
should be really, really cool. So, yeah, man, a lot of work. This is busy season, but I'm excited to be around my peers. I'm excited to be around the talent. I'm excited to be around the fans. There's no better experience. There's no purer experience than watching them interact with one another, watching the talent put on that show. So it should be really fun.
Oh, that's great stuff, man. And once again, appreciate you for joining. Jake Christie, where can we follow you, my friend?
You can follow me at the J Christie, and please listen to the podcast Love at First Psych. Me and Andre Barrera almost done with season 5 of Psych. We have 3 episodes left, and yeah, I'm very excited about getting to what the show gets. The show gets exciting around this time, so I'm excited.
Hey,
Awesome
shout
stuff.
out to William Howard Taft High School, James Roday. Yeah,
Shout
man.
out to James O'Day. Yep. I mean, yeah. If you ever ever see him, tell him I said hi.
Oh, and I almost forgot. Yeah, that's at Seahawk for anybody new to the program. If you want to go follow Cam, check him out there. You can follow me on Twitter at AnthonyCanton_3. Follow the show at MC University Pod on all platforms. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and get those subscriptions up. Same with the Patreon, as I mentioned earlier. We'll be covering this show. We'll be doing a lot of different things as we roll along. And the road to Deadpool and Wolverine, as we get to the springtime, it won't be that far away. So that will be a fun little road to go on, as Marvel Cinematic University will take you there. So for Cam Hawkins and Jake Christie, I'm Anthony Canton III. This has been Marvel Cinematic University, and we will talk to you next time.